Soothe the Savage Beasts. The auto jack was a dingy little hole in the wall that was usually the last refuge of the desperate and the forlorn. The place's food processor had died half a cycle ago, and a hand-lettered sign hung from the cloudy plastic window bearing a misspelled apology covered in dust. The mechanical bartender was usually on the fritz as well, and at least half the lights in the establishment had gone dark. The one thing that did work, though, was the table turner, and the smooth sounds of a singer from half a system away crooned out of the speakers, filling the back corner of the off-brand bar with its soothing sound. "I didn't really pick you for an Eclipse guy," Torg said, taking a swig from his beer. "What did you think I was going to put on?" Adrian asked. Torg shrugged his heavy shoulders. "Dunno. Steel Rain, maybe? Meteor? You seem old school enough for Afterburner." "You're speaking my language, but there's a time and a place for everything," Adrian said, twisting the top off of his own bottle. "I served with a guy a few years back who swore by Eclipse. He always told me that once the rounds stop flying and the adrenaline shakes wear off, to put on something smooth. Just sit in a quiet place and let yourself just be for a bit. Lots of guys gave him slag for it, but he didn't put up any kind of front about taking time for his head to get straight. You get shot, you go to the medic. You do the shooting, you still need to sit with it and let yourself heal." "I didn't shoot anybody," Torg said, peeling the label on his bottle. "Semantics," Adrian said. Torg didn't argue. The two men sat in the dim light of the dive and let the voice of Gianna Neptune and the lyrics of Broken City Starlight wash over them. It had been a long night, and a kind voice, even one recorded on a network 1,000 light years away, was still a balm on their frayed nerves. The shooting at the cage had been a shit show. Though nobody said it outright, the corporate interests who resented the Dockers' success at unionizing, largely because of the backing of the mercenaries from the Harriers Guild, had sent an assassin to take out the head union representative. The killing wouldn't have done anything functionally, but it would have been a reminder to the Dockers about who was really in charge. Hadrian had moved on the shooter, but it was Torg who'd put the arm on him. The hitman's palm pistol had gone off in the struggle, blowing apart his body cavity, making an all-fired mess. All of that was bad enough, but what came after was worse in its own way. Station security personnel showed up in force, almost as if they'd been tipped something was going to go down at that particular bar, at that particular time. They came in hard, but when they saw the gunman was dead and all the guilders present were both pissed and packing, they immediately flicked their safeties back on and switched to tough talk instead. Investigators grilled Torg and Hadrian about what had happened, turned reviewing the footage from the security cameras into a big production, and more than once threatened to arrest Torg under some pretty heavy charges when he didn't snap to quite how they wanted. When somebody pulled up the gunman's record and pointed out that the shooter's weaponized body mod was black market contraband, the boots backed off the issue. They shut the bar down and told Hadrian and Torg not to leave the station until they'd wrapped up their investigation. By the time they were finally released, it was the start of a new cycle and everybody was getting their work boots on for the next shift. Tired as Torg was, though, he'd agreed to a nightcap with Hadrian before he crawled into his sleeper and passed out. "You had to do this a lot?" Torg asked as one song ended and the slow sound of digital strings signaled the next track starting. "Not as often as you might think," the big harrier said, taking a slow swig from his own bottle. "Most of the time we get paid to stand around and do a whole lot of nothing, like back at the docks when we first showed up. This is probably the only job in the whole galaxy where you get paid because of what you can do, rather than what you actually do." "Until something like this happens," Torg said. Hadrian nodded. "Yeah, until something like this happens. Then it's fingers on triggers till the work is done." Neither of them said anything for a while. The music kept playing, filling in the silence, so neither of them really had to be alone with their thoughts. They drank a little at a time, until each of them was holding an empty bottle. As the crescendo of the last song finally drifted away to silence, the juke beeped, asking for more credits. Hadrian raised his bottle and an eyebrow at Torg.
You good for one more?
He asked. The docker shook his head and blew out a long breath. Nah, only thing that's going to put me right is a few dark hours.
All right,
Hadrian said, and rolled out his thick neck.
Come on, let's go.
It's no big deal, I just live right down the tramway here, Torg said.
I hear you,
Hadrian said, nodding.
But there's at least 2 security bikes out there doing their best to look like they're not following us. So while I agree we need to hit a crash couch soon, it's probably best to do it in a place they can't kick down the door and claim you were resisting arrest in your sleep.
Torg glanced out the door, frowning as he peered into the half-light. The bikes were there, sure enough, their riders puffing on e-pipes and waiting. You seen this before too?
Yeah,
Hadrian said.
And at this stage of things, a little prevention goes a long way.